And my mom asked me if I wanted to do a TV show with her, to be in an after-school special. You remember the after-school specials? They had these things where, you know, they'd introduce some big teen pregnancy, gangs, drugs, something, and within 23 minutes, solved.
Please welcome to the stage. Let's get excited. Sean Astin, Elijah Wood, Andy Serkis. All right, let's do this. This place is packed.
Wow.
Standing room only. This is crazy. Awesome.
Hello.
Hey,
DC.
welcome.
Hello.
That's right, we're back in the district.
Have any of you guys spent much time in Washington, D.C.? I'm not from here, but yeah. So,
Fair bit of time, yeah.
Okay. You have a favorite thing you like to do to tell your comrades here to experience?
Well, I'm 3 classes away from my master's at American University, so
There you go, yeah.
It's awesome, you guys. Definitely, if you're in town, you definitely have to catch a class at. I love government.
Okay.
I love government. I know, right?
You're in the right place.
Well, I guarantee you, most of the people in here are either in the military or in the civil service or something like that. So, but yeah.
Hey, for all those who serve our government, let's give them a round of applause. Let's do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, ever since I think certainly we met Sean, we've always thought Sean would be president one day, actually. I think he'd be a good choice.
Not too late.
Politics are so bad now. They're like, we wouldn't wish that on anyone.
So are you here to announce your candidacy? Is this it? We're coming out, we're doing this? You can decide. You have like 40 minutes to decide, so we'll...
Okay. Well, Frodo and Sam, yeah, we're supposed to...
Frodo and Sam, yeah.
Is this our year?
This is our year.
It's our year.
2024.
No,
2024.
In Shire...
They're already t-shirts.
In Shire reckoning, is it our year?
Well, we have so many questions, but I've got to ask you guys, can you remember the first time you met each other? What was the very first moment you met each other?
Yeah, I met Sean in the lobby of a hotel. I had just come down from a wig fitting. This was in Los Angeles. And then we ran into each other. He was going up for his. I was leaving my wig fitting. We saw each other, and we immediately embraced. We'd never met.
Yeah.
Gave each other a hug.
I looked him in the eye. I said, "Are you ready for this?" And he said, "Yeah." And as it turned out, he was ready for it. I was not. I remember the first time I laid eyes on this one over here. It was on in Maori, WHA is pronounced like F. So it was in Whakapapa.
Yeah.
Right?
That's it.
We were at the chateau. We were staying at this
That's
Nicholson-esque, Shining style hotel.
By the way, the chateau has shut down.
Yeah.
No.
It is shut down. The building's still there, but it is no longer an operating hotel as of 2 years ago. And
Where will the ghosts go?
We've got to go up there and film a movie in the chateau. This place is amazing.
It is the Shining Hotel.
It smelled of pot. There was a big smell of pot coming in. But anyway, they had a little golf course in front of it, and we went out to play golf, and here comes Andy bounding over like he'd been hiding in the golf course. Right? And we gave each other a hug, and he said, "Are you ready for this?" And I said, "No, I had learned by then." No. Yeah. Something, right?
It was totally, that's it. The Whakapapa, yeah.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
Well, Lord of the Rings has had it's had such a legacy, an impact worldwide impact. I can't even imagine what it's like to be in the center of it all. When you first began the journey, compared to, of course, today, what's probably the biggest surprise as you kind of look back over the past, couple decades and kind of seen how the movies have just really impacted the world? Like, what's your sort of, as you look back?
I mean, it's very rare you walk onto a film set, and this is certainly my experience, where you feel from the word go that you kind of felt that it was going to be an extraordinarily special outcome. I kind of think we all felt that. I mean, I don't think anybody doubted. Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens was so in control of the story, so in control of the story they wanted to tell and the way they wanted to tell it, and really kept it close. And it really truly was the greatest family to be part of. And I think all of those things, I just know that when I walked onto set for the first time, which was actually when we were going up to for the first time I saw you guys. You'd already done a lot of work on the Fellowship, but my first day was us going up to Mount Doom. Mm-hmm. It was literally. I remember third film, scene 579, first day. It was just like it was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Well, I remember being tired, and then.
I remember being tired.
I remember being tired, and well, it's Sam, right? I was hungry and I was tired, so we ate and slept. Those are the important things to do. But and you came in and you had such fresh energy, like new guy off the boat energy, like total intensity, passion, and like fired up. And I just remember looking at Elijah and thinking to myself, like, uh-oh, we're gonna have to like level up now. Right, yeah, and it's true, and you kept that level of intensity though the whole time, and I think it set an important tone. I think it did.
I think that's well said. You are extraordinary. You have reserves of energy, and even I mean, it is amazing, and the way too that you work and put 110% of yourself, both physically and emotionally and mentally, into what you do is really inspiring to watch.
Oh, back at you. I mean, in droves, back at you. My memory was that Pete Jackson, saw me being Gollum and just fell about laughing. He just thought it was the funniest thing. He just thought, I don't know what it was, but I thought I was doing something quite serious and kind of meaningful, and he was just like giggling. And, and it was just like,
that's exactly right.
Who is this guy? Why isn't he responding?
We're talking now about AI as the big subject of the moment all over the planet, and Andy, it's Andy's fault. The way I look at it, yes. They never would have figured.
Fake.
Yeah, they never would have pushed the technology the way they did until you came along. I don't care what Silicon Valley says. Andy Serkis, who forged a character, forged it really. I think you're on the tip of everybody's tongue when they're talking about, like, as a frame of reference, like, what is it? So you say, you're looking back, what do you think? That's where at the moment, that's where my mind is, like we're in a transition moment in the...
Well, that was trailblazing, what you were doing, what Weta was doing. I mean, on a whole, there were things in those films that had never been accomplished before. Even Massive, the engine for crowd... essentially crowd AI, where you sort of, you have a large battle scene and you tell X amount of soldiers to kind of do their thing, and then you let them free, and so you don't have that thing where you have repeat animations. Everyone is actually independent, but sort of fighting on their side. That had never been done before. That was let loose within the context of these
remember when we first...
So there's so much trailblazing, and Gollum, there had never been a fully CG character in a film before.
And it still holds up. Like, it's still beautiful. It's beautiful. It looks better than even some of the films out today.
Yeah, I mean, but that's right. I mean, about like Helm's Deep, all of those sequences with, and then those huge battle sequences were, as you say, they were AI driven. Yeah. Absolutely. We kind of forget that. I mean, that's 20 years ago. It is amazing.
I remember getting there, and they gave us the tour of the Weta workshop, and we saw the orc costumes by the thousands. You look as far down, you're like, I don't need to look at all of them. We can, and then they showed us some of the CG things, and it was like that. They would have like an environment that looked like a primitive video game, and then I didn't know what we were looking at, and then the little characters go in there, and they're just shapes, and the shapes are moving themselves, and they were and then there was like, look at this, where they showed us leaves. Do you remember the CG leaves? We're watching, and they were like, we finally understand how to do leaves. And you're like...
Well, they also worked out fire.
They were huge, and water.
That was a
like
huge
these main elements, and they had figured...
Balrog would not have been possible slightly earlier in the way that it turned out.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So that's it. I feel like as much as we were blazing a trail, now it seems like the Rosetta Stone. It's like,
Well, before we jump, too deep into it, we have fans that have tons of questions about Lord of the Rings. We always like to ask our guests kind of how they started into acting, and Andy, I want to start with you because no one really grows up thinking I'm going to be like this like world-changing performance capture actor, like to be able to sort of push technology forward and to create sort of these incredible CGI characters. When you were younger, like what was your ambition as far as, did you want to be an entertainer? Like what was that like?
No, I had no intentions of being an actor at all. When I started, I painted. That was my thing. I was a visual artist. I went to study visual arts, and I wanted to tell stories with paintings. And then in my first year at college, I was told I had to do a subsidiary course. I hadn't paid attention. I didn't realize it, but there was a theatre studies course. So I started acting. Well, I started designing props and things for shows and posters, and then started acting. And then by the end of the first year, I just went, this is it. I want to, I don't want to be behind a drawing board for the rest of my life. I want to become these other, the ability to step into another person, or in our case, creature's shoes or feet, was an amazing thing. But having said that, I really was pleased that I've been able to use all the skills that I had as a visual artist, I suppose, to bring it back full circle. When it came to things like talking to the animators and being drawn into the visual effects world in Lord of the Rings, that was my entry into it. But I had no intention of being.
Elijah, how about you?
How did I start?
Yeah.
Oh man, I started out. I was quite young. My mom was watching TV one day. I was 5, and she saw a commercial on TV and thought, "Oh, that would be fun for Elijah to do." I had a lot of energy. I was born in Iowa, in Cedar Rapids, and so there really is no outlet. Go Iowa! All right, okay. Go Hawkeyes, I guess. There's no real outlet for that in Cedar Rapids. So, make a long story short, we ended up going out to Los Angeles, where I met a manager and got an agent, and we thought we would try auditioning for commercials, and that would be a fun hobby. I fell in love with it immediately, started doing commercials, and then one thing led to another, and I started doing movies, and I just kind of fell into it and fell in love with it very quickly and learned as I went, and,
May I ask, is this personal, professional?
Is this personal or professional?
Yeah.
I guess it's a mix of both.
Okay.
I was working on a film that I had a beard, and then I just shaved the rest of the beard off and kept the mustache.
Well, as an Asian, I'm jealous of your mustache.
Oh, cheers. Thank you.
I love it.
Thanks.
Sean, how about you?
well, as a 52-year-old whose beard and mustache are gray now, I'm jealous of it. So
This is pretty gray. If this grows in, it's gray.
I know, but here it just looks so kind of like...
Perfect. It's like perfect.
Ready, swashbuckling.
Wow.
I don't know why we're teasing you. So my mother and father were professional actors. Thank you. My father, John Astin, was Gomez in the original Addams Family. He's 93 now and doing great.
And the judge in The Frighteners.
In The Frighteners, yeah, and Peter Jackson's The Frighteners. Yeah, when I learned about Lord of the Rings, and I knew what it was because my dad had shared his pictures being with Peter and Weta and going through that 6-hour transformation, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. But my mom, late mom, is Patty Duke, and yeah. Thank you very much. So I don't know. It's hard to remember a time when even little kids weren't sophisticated about media and about movies and TV shows and stuff like that, where now we know behind the scenes, now we know all that stuff. But back then, my parents were actors, and it felt like, I think, the theater, movies and TV, it felt like they were going off and they would do something, and then they would come back, and I wasn't really invested necessarily in what they were doing. I was kind of loosely aware of it at 7 or 8 years old. And my mom asked me if I wanted to do a TV show with her, to be in an after-school special. You remember the after-school specials? They had these things where, they'd introduce some big teen pregnancy, gangs, drugs, something, and within 23 minutes, solved. And so she said, and this one was about an abusive mother and her abused child. Yeah. So my mom, I played her abused son. The title was aptly called "Please Don't Hit Me, Mom."
Oh, God.
That's it. I just autographed a copy of some version of it. I was reading the back cover, and it was like, when something becomes an adventure, and I'm like, and it's a picture of me getting beat up by my mom. So my mom is a famous bipolar, was one of the first celebrities to kind of talk about being bipolar. So anyhow, at this point, my first question was, do I get to get out of school? That was the important thing to me. And she said, yes, but you have like 3 hours a day. And then I said, do I get paid money? I was like 7 or 8 years old. So my priorities were already set. And she said, yeah, $10,000, but it goes into an account and you get it when you become an adult. And so I said, yeah. And then she said, well, okay, well, now you have to audition for it, which is classic Hollywood. They get you all excited and then tell you it's not yours yet, So I had to audition for it. And what was the set? It was Three's Company. Remember Three's Company, the TV show? My mom worked with me on the audition. We went to where they shot Three's Company, and there was, I think that was it. And we worked on their stage on a Saturday, on their set. And I got the part. And it was, the first, we did the scene where she beats me up. And so she starts, we sort of loosely choreographed it. And she was just a little thing. I think I was almost taller than her at 7. I mean, she was like short. But so she starts like shaking me and hitting me and these kind of things. And I started laughing. Well, it was uncomfortably close to home, if you will. And so we did a few takes, and it's not like they had a big budget. You had to get it and then go. And so the director was looking more and more panicked after take 3, and I just was like trying not to laugh. So my mom takes me out of this little house in the valley and she says, Sean, I took a chance on you. This is my professional life. You have got to, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, she's like, rolling. So we film it, and I'm crying, and she's hitting me, and I'm, and it's like, and then they say cut, and she goes, honey, that's acting. And I was like, okay, so it's real. Yeah, so that's how I got my start.
What an entry, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like PTSD, reliving this whole thing. So.
I'm fine now. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Yeah.
We have questions.
But mostly what I learned from her, besides that, was what a mark is. You have to hit your mark, and you have to know your lines. That was the most important thing. And as a 7, 8-year-old kid, she said those 2 things to me, and that's what carried my entire career. You have to, and the last thing is you have to be better off camera than on camera. That there's a relationship between you and your fellow performers, and that's what I learned.
And when she said off camera, meaning like when they're doing the other coverage on the other actors, that you're better for them for their coverage. That is such fucking good advice.
Well, I was.
It is
my
such good
favorite
advice.
thing about shooting was the hot chocolate. Like, I got to have hot chocolate. And there was one time where the dolly is the thing with the camera's on, and the babysitter and the brother who are, discovering that the mother is abusive and what to do about it. And so I'm sitting on it, on the side of the dolly. The dolly guy's like, here's a little chair for you. And I sit on it, and I've got and it was highly entertaining. And my mom was like, she took me off to the side and was like, you must be better off camera than on camera. And I was like, oh. So, yeah, it's important lessons.
Yeah. So let's shift off of child abuse and let's move on to.
You asked.
So before we go to our questions, you've all done such amazing diversity of roles, but we're going to kind of focus on Lord of the Rings. Can you tell us how you first encountered that role? Like, was it something you were seeking out, or did you sort of fight for it? Like, how did you land your particular roles? Yeah, go for it.
I'd heard that they were making this. My agent said, "Look, they're making this film of Lord of the Rings down in New Zealand, and they'd like to see you for for a digital character's voice, and I was like, Jesus, there must be like 12 or 13 great parts in that movie. Can't you get me up for something good? You know, I mean, there must be an acting role in there, and so I had no idea. I really didn't understand what was behind that. I didn't understand what they were kind of getting at. Anyway, turns out it was Gollum, and I was like, that's a great character. Okay, so then it was like, okay, you have to figure out. Well, I'm not really the sort of actor who just can pull out a voice. It's not how I work. I've never done that before in my life. I didn't know how to do that. So I had to really think my way into the character and kind of get inspired in some way, which happened to be, and sorry if you've all heard this before, and you probably have, but I was inspired by my cat, who was called Diz at the time, who actually, whilst I was trying to figure out how to make a voice which came from a physicality, which came from a psychological center of being, guilt-driven, and where's the pain of this character, I thought, well, it's trapped in his throat. He's called Gollum because of the way he sounds. I've got to do something that makes the voice sound kind of, that it's coming from a physicality. So Diz, my cat, came in and literally coughed up a furball in front of me. And gospel truth, this is absolutely true. I watched his back rippling, and I just thought, that's brilliant. I really like that. I love this. And then he started to go, I thought, that's even better. I like this, Diz. Bring it on. And then he went, no, he didn't do that. He didn't. But that's how I got the voice. And then I auditioned and went up and met the Hubbards. Did you ever meet the Hubbards, the casting directors?
No, but know of them, yeah.
So I crawled up onto a chair and got into character and started going, and all of that. And they literally, John Hubbard's face, he just went like this. And I thought, oh, I've really screwed this up. This is obviously really... Anyway, they sent the tape to Pete and Fran, and then we met, and as soon as I met Peter and Fran, it was like, these guys are incredible. And Pete then said, and this is kind of what you're talking about, being better off than, or be as good or better off camera. He said, we want an actor to play that role because the actors who are playing Frodo and Samwise Gamgees will need someone to act off. So it was just like, okay, no, I get that. I really get that. And at the time, the whole motion capture thing wasn't a thing. It was like, so it was a bit of a gamble. And this is also a true story. A very, very close friend of mine, actor, said to me, when I got offered it, that he said, well, are you actually going to be on screen? Are you actually going to be on camera? And are you actually going to be seen? Are you actually going to... I said, no, I won't actually be visibly seen. And he said, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole, mate. And he said, I met him years later, he said, that was the worst piece of advice I've ever given anyone in my entire life. Anyway, so that was how it happened. It was that was a rather long-winded story.
No, it's so fascinating.
Yeah. Who liked that story?
That's right, yeah.
I think it's good.
It's so fascinating, and there was also a perception from people there that you were the voice, but you came and you were the physical embodiment of the character and really drove that for us on set too. And man, it was, not only were you helpful for us, but you were helpful for their imagination in regards to what became of the character, and then that ultimately drove animation and so on and so forth. It was so much more than simply doing the voice, ultimately. It's such a cool story.
But it's funny, isn't it, how the sliding doors moment happened in your life? Like I never would have thought that would have grown into, the kind of a kind of way of creating characters, And that was the great thing, again, about Peter. He was really responsible for sort of saying, this is not just creating a visual effect. This is character. And all of the character, all of the monsters, all of the Shelob to the Balrog, you really care about those characters. And they're not just these kind of sort of monsters which are out there that you don't relate to. You relate to all of those characters. Yeah.
Elijah, how did you become Frodo?
Similarly, I heard that they were casting Lord of the Rings. I didn't have a relationship to the books. I had a relationship to The Hobbit. I'd read The Hobbit, but understood the significance of the Lord of the Rings. It was on my shelf for years, and I just had never got around to reading them. And I had heard, yeah, I know. And I'd actually heard about it probably 2 years before they cast, because I think there was an announcement that Peter was going to be doing it, and I remember I was in Austin, Texas, working on another film, and someone came and said, they're doing Lord of the Rings, and Peter Jackson's doing it, which made so much sense. I'd seen Heavenly Creatures and seen his early films and loved them, so that was thrilling to me. Anyway, agent called, said they're casting the film. Will you go in and there's a casting office in Los Angeles. Victoria Burrows was the U.S. casting director. And I didn't feel comfortable going into a casting office. There was something about it that, I knew I wasn't going to be able to meet Peter and Fran and have that experience right away because they were traveling around the world meeting various people and seeing tapes from literally everyone. But I also didn't love the idea. I didn't love the idea of going into a kind of a room, a white cold room being filmed with a video, a video recorder doing these lines. It just felt static and stale. And so I decided to make my own audition tape, which I'd never done before, but I thought I have to take matters into my own hands here on some level and, do everything I can to express my passion for this character and for this world. And so there were 3 audition scenes for Frodo, and some friends of mine and I went into the woods and shot a few of these scenes in a variety of angles, and my friend helped cut it together and edited them like proper scenes. And then I went to the casting office and dropped that off, and then they FedExed that to Peter.
And when are you going to upload that to YouTube?
I haven't actually seen it in 20 years. Or 22 years. I've got it somewhere. So yeah.
You gotta see it.
So that's kind of how it, and then I ultimately, Peter and Fran did come out to Los Angeles to meet with a few people whose videos they had seen, and I got to re-audition for them, which was incredible. And then months later, I got a call from Peter.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Sean, how about you?
I was just, you're talking about being in Los Angeles. So my father, who was the judge in Frighteners for Peter Jackson, auditioned for Gandalf.
Oh,
do you remember that? Did I ever talk about that? Yeah, and I auditioned. There's so much to tell. I can't figure to get the right story here, but I auditioned for Victoria Burrows, who was the LA casting director. I had met her at the Frighteners premiere, and she'd cast my brother in something, and she kept saying, "We have to find something for you." Right? We should have like a little Victoria Burrows statue at our house, like, "Thank you, Victoria, for getting our family."
She's amazing.
She's amazing. She's so much, she's so elegant. She's got her personality and her sensitivity is really lovely. And I actually did not, you go through different phases as an actor. Sometimes auditioning is the worst thing in the world. You just hate it. And then other times you start to get like excited about it, and you're going to take the bull by the horns, and I'm going to go in and audition and I'm going to nail it. And generally your career goes better when you approach auditions in that way. But this particular moment when it came time to do it, I wasn't nervous at all. I felt like Pete and Fran with my dad, had seen this movie where I play a drug addict called Where the Day Takes You. And they had watched it. They love like esoteric little movies. They're always watching stuff that is like so different. And Fran said they were actually she was in labor with Billy and watching this drug addict movie. So yeah, and so they called me afterwards with my dad, and they just said, how wonderful they thought. This is years before Lord of the Rings. So when it came time to audition, I didn't feel like it was nameless executives or people who couldn't care. I knew that these people would look at what I was doing for a moment and they would care about it, and the trick as an actor is to assume that's always the case. So I remember going in, and the scene was don't go where I can't follow. He's not asleep. He's dead. Samwise, seeing Frodo dead, it's not good. And I just finished it up and looked at her, and we were like, a lot of times you're like, do you want to do another take or whatever? And it just felt so normal. It just felt so, just all you have to do is just say the words. you don't have to do anything. Like the Tolkien's language is so good that if you just let the sounds come out of your mouth without interrupting them, the ideas and the emotions of them just grab you. And we were like, it's great, it's great. And I felt, and then they came to LA and I had to go back in and do it for them, for Peter and Fran. And then I was a little nervous. I was getting a little nervous because it was real. Now it was real. Like you're going back in for a callback, and you know how busy these people are. Oh, yeah. And afterwards, Pete said, he said, "Well, it's a long time in New Zealand. How do you feel about 2 years in New Zealand?" And I said, "Well, you won't have to ask me twice." But I realized 3 months in or 4 months in, like, uh-oh. And now I get why he was asking that question, because it's like hard to be away from home and for such a long period of time. But there's a million angles to that story, but I feel like that one fits.
Right, thank you. Let's go to our, yes, thank you. Let's go to our fans in the audience. Let's start over here. Tell us your name, how many awesome cons, and ask your one question. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Laura. This is my 4th Awesome Con. And my question for all of you is, what is your favorite attribute of your character, including Smeagol / Gollum? He's not excluded from this. Favorite attribute.
I'm glad he's not excluded. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
We only have a couple minutes, and so we'll have to keep it tight.
Frodo's humanity, I think, and his ability to see the good in the dark places. I think the way he deals with Gollum / Smeagol is, I think, his true character, and I love that about him.
I'm not proud of the fact that Samwise is a little happy that the elven rope is burning Gollum's skin. As an aspect of Sam you don't think of very much, but yeah, Sam is, he's faithful. Yeah, that one, faithfulness.
I think one of the things about Gollum / Smeagol is that he is, ultimately he is powerless, and I think that he doesn't choose his path. It's kind of chosen for him, no matter how much he would try and resist it. And I think there are moments that he feels that powerlessness, and I think the fact that Frodo doesn't judge him, Samwise does. But the fact that Frodo judged,
he keeps calling me fat all the time.
I think that was why a lot of people kind of relate to Gollum, is because most people have certain flaws, and actually they know when they are unable to kind of get over that, and I think that was strangely how he was a relatable character.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Allie, and this is my 5th Awesome Con. My question is, a lot of us got introduced to the idea of being nerdy through Lord of the Rings. What are you guys a little bit nerdy for?
Good question.
Well, for me, it's absolutely SAG-AFTRA is our performers union, and I've dedicated much of the last few years of my life to that. And if you can just picture, 30 to 50 people in a room in a closed with, no windows and the doors closed, and you're just talking about contracts for 15 hours, I'm pretty sure that's nerdy.
Yes, it is.
It's a good one.
A lot of things, but top are probably food and records.
Okay.
I'm a big jazz nerd, actually, and I'm a huge lover of Miles Davis, John Coltrane. I also have a go at playing the sax as well. But I've adored their music. It's literally been my soul music for like all my life. Like literally late 50s, early 60s jazz, particularly, really, is my thing. I'm kind of nuts about.
Brilliant.
Yeah, amen.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Nick. I've been to 6 Awesome Cons.
Dude, we're 4, 5, 6. All right, you better have been to 7, man. Carry on.
My question is for Mr. Woods. Do you wear wigs?
I mean, I have. Yes.
Will you wear wigs?
I will. In fact, I just did in a film that'll come out sometime next year.
Then will you wear wigs?
Sort of answered that question already, but there's a... Yeah, no, I know. There's a film called Bookworm that we just shot in New Zealand. It was my first time shooting in New Zealand since the Lord of the Rings, and I wore a wig in that film, so...
Thank you so much
you're
for
welcome.
getting it.
Very, very good.
All right, let's hear it.
My name is Will, and this is my first Awesome Con.
Hey, yes. Very good.
First off, my dad's a jazz musician, and my question is, if by miracle Smeagol had succeeded in fighting Gollum to the bitter end and saved himself with the help of Frodo and Sam, where or how do you think Frodo and Sam would have introduced him back into society now that Gollum was gone?
With pants on.
Also, do you think Ewoks would have been better at Helm's Deep?
Ewoks?
Ewoks.
The poor things wouldn't have survived. Oh my God. Although maybe they are so small and wily, maybe they would have been crafty, you know? So wait, introducing Gollum back into society? Is that what the question
I think he
was?
would have been with the SAG union, trying to work out.
I can picture Frodo trying to explain why it's okay to bring him back to the Shire. And I can figure Sam saying like, well, but you know, the Mines of Moria, he might be happier with the orcs. You know, he's lived in a cave. And he doesn't necessarily have to come back with us, does he?
Well, we could introduce him to his old ancestors. You know, they certainly live. He was a Stour Hobbit, after all. There would be existing...
Let's not forget he was a Hobbit.
That's right, he was a fucking Hobbit, man.
And you never gave him that.
I'm trying to remember if Sam ever learned... One of the best, morals or something, one of the lessons, I don't know what it is. One of the coolest things in Lord of the Rings is that Frodo treats Gollum like Smeagol. And when he treats Smeagol like Smeagol, Smeagol acts like Smeagol. And when other people crap on Gollum, he turns into Gollum. And it's a great life lesson about how we treat each other and the influence you can have on other people. And I just have this like vague recollection that somewhere in the Lord of the Rings, Sam appreciates that. But I can't really remember it.
What?
Thank you.
Well, sadly, we're out of time. But before we conclude, can you tell us what do we have to look forward to? Is there anything that you guys are working on that you'd like to share or can share? I know you might not be able to share too many details. What's next for you guys?
I don't know. Pass.
All right.
I've done a couple of little films, like little independent films. I'll pop in and do a week or something like that, and then I go away, and then someone says, "Oh, were you in this movie?" And you go, "Oh yeah, I was. Wait, let me watch it." And it's like a whole new movie surprise. But I'm all the way into the SAG stuff right now.
Hey, can we just give a big cheer for Bob for Stranger Things? Let's give it up for Bob. We love Bob. Elijah, how about you? What's anything coming up? You want to share?
I was just in the season 2 of Yellow Jackets, which was super fun. And I was just in New Zealand working. I made a movie a number of years ago called Come to Daddy. If anyone's seen it. Ant Timpson is a Kiwi, directed it. It was written by this guy called Toby Harvard. So we kind of got the creative band back together, so to speak, and made another movie down in New Zealand called Bookworm that we just finished. So that'll come out sometime later next year. And also in a Toxic Avenger remake that Macon Blair wrote and directed.
Oh, sweet!
That should come out sometime later this year as well.
I just thought of something. I did an episode of The Connors, and they're talking about bringing me back as maybe the love interest. So, and that is the people wrote in different magazines and things about that. So maybe that.
Okay, great. And Andy, how about you?
So I'm halfway through directing an animated version of George Orwell's book Animal Farm, and so That's a project that we've been working on for about 10 years to get made, and finally, we're with Cinesight and Aniventure, this great animation company, we're making it, and it'll be ready about this time next year.
Well, thank you for making it out. Hey, let's give it up for Sean, Elijah, Andy. Get a quick pic here. There we go. Thank you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Hey there, this is Nolan North, and you are watching Fandom Spotlight. Good for you. Very proud of you. Now go watch more. Oh, and have fun and follow your fandom. I like that. I like it a lot.